Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. We're making a very simple little pouch today, and I can tell you mistakes are going to be made. This is it. So what I wanted to do with this was just have something with a little diagonal contrast in it. When I wake up in the mornings, I like to scroll Facebook Reels, and Gia Sewing had something similar to this. So I thought I can do that. I do warn you, there is some fabric wastage involved in getting the diagonal cuts, but you can use those scrap pieces of fabric for another project later on because we've all got tons of scraps. So normally I don't like to go and waste fabric, but I really wanted to have something with diagonals in it this time. So here's the back of the bag, the bottom, and it's just a zippered pouch or a zippered closure at the top there, and with no tabs on the ends. Let's get straight to it, and I'll even leave all the mistakes in. All right, I have 2 pieces of fabric and 1 piece of fusible fleece. I'm using a lightweight Parlan. It's very much like Palin. You can use whatever you like. If you just want to use an interfacing, if your fabric's heavy enough and you don't need it, then you don't have to use anything. So what we're going to do is take these 2 pieces of fabric and place them right side together. And you can do this technique with any size fabric really. There's, when you're making box bags or little zippered pouches, size is really just up to yourself. And the line that we're marking for the diagonal is also whatever you'd like it to be. So I'm not going to take any measurements here. You can make this any way you like. So what I have are my 2 rectangular pieces faced together, and I'm just going to choose a random spot anywhere along the fabric to mark my diagonal. I don't want to go from one corner to the next because that's too predictable. So let's just go, say, from here to here. If you need a measurement, I'm coming down, say 2 inches from the top, which is 5 centimeters, and from the bottom I'm 1 to 3 inches from the top. So 2 inches and 3 inches. But like I said, you can do any measurement you like. Mark a line. And we'll pin these 2 pieces of fabric together. Once you've marked your line and placed your pins on the fabric just to keep it in place, you're going to take this to the machine and stitch 2 rows of stitching. So let's make the seam allowance 1/4 of an inch because that's nice and easy. So if we line up the ruler or one of the lines on this ruler on that line, I'm going to mark a dotted line 1/4 of an inch to the right of it, and I'll flip this around, and I'll also mark another line 1/4 of an inch to the right of that. And these 2 dotted lines are going to be my stitching lines. So if you're a quilter and you've ever done half square triangles, you might have tried this technique with squares. So we're going to sew on both sides of this solid line at 1/4 of an inch away from the line. And once we've done that, then we can actually cut right down the center. The solid line is our cutting line, the dotted line is our stitching line. Let's go do that. Flip it around and we'll come back down the other side. All right, once you've sewn those 2 lines, before we cut it, we're going to iron it. And the reason we're going to do that first is to prevent the fabric from stretching. So with any fabric that's cut on the diagonal, it's the bias of the fabric and it's the stretchiest part of the fabric as well. So rather than cutting first, we're going to separate the front from the back, and we'll iron those two pieces. And we'll do the same on this side. Flip it over. So we're just pressing the fabric away from the seam. And once that's done, we can cut it. Now the line I had marked before, that's faded away because I've been using a friction pen, but all you need to do is cut straight down the middle of those two rows. If you don't cut straight, it doesn't even matter, as long as you cut right down the centre. So now we have two pieces of fabric that look like that, with completely irregular shapes. We're going to square this up now though. So now I'm going to place the two pieces of fabric together like that. And all I'm doing here is making a rectangle of fabric. So I'm lining this up with the two diagonals on top of each other. And it's not necessary, I'm just doing this so that it's nice and flat and I can create two rectangles. Doesn't even matter what size the fabric is going to be, all I'm doing is squaring it up. So I've got one straight edge to begin with, and I want to get as much usable fabric out of this as I can. So I've got a straight edge along here and along here. I'm going to cut straight up there. So I've got three straight edges now, and the last one here. I'm just going to try and get the maximum out of the fabric that I've got available. And this is what I'm left with. So there's not much fabric after all of that. I do keep these pieces though, they'll go into a scrappy quilt or a scrappy bag further down the track. So now we have our front and back pieces. These are ready to be used in our bag. Now that we've got this size, we can cut a couple of pieces of fabric for our lining, and we can also fuse our stabilizer to the wrong side of this fabric. So once again, there are no set measurements for this. You'll just make this in whatever size you like. If you need to have measurements, then this is finished at 10 by 6.5 inches. All right, after squaring up my fabric, I've got two pieces that are 6.5 by 10 inches. Then I have two pieces of fabric for the lining. I have a zip, this being 10 inches or 25 centimetres in length. I'm going for something a lot longer because I'm using a regular zip today. I want to have a decent overhang to make it easier to put the zip in. And I've got a D-ring, which is completely optional. I've just got a lot to use up, and a strip of fabric that I'll use for a little tab to put the D-ring onto. And the fabric has already been stabilised, so I've done that as well. And now we can start putting the bag together. So determine how you want this to look on each side. If you have your zip at the top, you're going to have the stripy bit at the top and that at the bottom, and the opposite on the opposite side. Or if you wanted to, you could kind of have it looking like that. So it's completely up to you. I'm going to have the bigger section at the top for no particular reason. Before I put my zip in, I'm going to mark my boxed corners. And I want them slightly different at the top and the bottom. So this being the top of my bag, I'm just making this up as I go. I don't really have any dimensions in mind at all. And you guys have already seen the bag. I haven't. I've just got an idea in mind and I'm just going with it. So on the bottom, I'm going to measure 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres. We don't want it to be too big. So that's the bottom of the bag. And at the top, I think I'm just going to make it 2 centimetres from the outside edge, which is 3/4 of an inch, and the same from the top. So 2 centimetres at the top, or 3/4 of an inch, and 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres at the bottom. We'll do the same for the lining. And the reason I'm doing this, or one of the reasons that I'm doing this, is that I can't be bothered doing tabs on the end of the bag, so I'm just slightly boxing the corners at the top so that the zip can sit straight across the top. Just saves a little bit of extra time in things that you've got to do. I've been so busy lately with appointments that I'm trying to get a lot of videos created more quickly. So I'm just trying to manage my time a little bit better by coming up with simple little cheats. We can cut those corners out. Okay, so we've got our corners done, the small ones at the top, bigger ones at the bottom. It really doesn't matter if you flip it the other way around. If you have the bigger box corner at the top, it means your bag is going to taper in more at the top. So up to you which way you want to go. I'm sticking with the smaller box corners at the top. And now we can put the zip in. All right, we've got our lining ready, our outer fabric ready, and our zip. And I'm going to prepare this piece of fabric as well. So I've got the longest side across here. I'll fold that in half. Fold that in half again. And bring those edges into the centre as well. So when we go to the machine shortly, I'll sew down both long edges. And that will be for the D-ring. Let's put our zip in. So this is the top section. I'm going to run a strip of double-sided tape along the top edge, and this is to hold the zipper in place. And we'll do the same for the lining. Remove the paper, and I'm going to place my zipper tape right side down over the fabric. I'm going to leave about an inch or so extra on that end, and the rest of the tail will come off this end here. So it'll look just like that. We're going to be trimming this back shortly. And then we'll remove the paper from this side and place that over the top. Line up your side edges and then the top edge. If you don't have double-sided tape, just clip or pin your edges together like this. Then I'm going to make a mark on my zipper tape right at the outside edge of my fabric on both sides. And this is just going to mark the position for the zipper tape on the other side of the fabric here. So now we can go and sew all the way across from one side to the other. Just move your zipper head out of the way when you get to it. I like to sew with the stabilised fabric faced up, so I'll start at this end and work my way down. I've got the edge of my zipper foot really close to the teeth. All right, with that side done, we can separate the back and the front fabric from each other. I forgot to go and sew that binding strip. We'll do that next. So I'll grab the other piece of fabric, take the paper off, and I'm going to line up these markings I've made with the fabric on the side there, and line that up. And hopefully the back and front have lined up evenly, and in this case they haven't. This is where double-sided tape is really handy, because you can see at a glance how everything looks, and you can easily remove the work and start again. This is a wash away double-sided tape, so it doesn't gum up your needles. So those edges are nice and square along there. And then we can grab our lining and we can place that right side down as well. And just check that that looks good too. Let's go and stitch that one in place too now. And we'll do the tab. All right, we'll just quickly do this tab. And now we can do the zip. I'll move that slider out of the way first. Here's my tab and my D-ring. Just going to place that onto the fabric, fold that in half. And this is the front of my bag. And with all the other fabric pieces at the top here, I'm going to place this tab just on the side here. I'm only putting one on rather than two. D-ring, as I said, is completely optional. I'll sew that in a moment. Open out the fabric again, so we have the lining and the outer on both sides. And what I want to do here is go back to the machine and just stitch right at the very end here. And on this end, I'm going to do the same. Just stitch the zipper tape closed right at the top end here, just inside the area where we'll be cutting shortly. So I'll go and do that now. All right, so here's what I've done. This one has been secured in place and it's sitting about an inch from the boxed corner cutout. And I've gone and sewn it to my lining. I'll go and undo that. I didn't want this sewn onto the lining, just onto the front layer. And on the end of the zipper tape here, I've over-sewn this end and this end, making sure that my zipper head is to the middle here. So this is nice and secure. It's not going to fall apart. And same here. So we can trim this back now. Same at this end. And I'll fix that. Okay, that's been fixed up. So we want this little tab to sit behind the outer fabric, but we don't want the lining stitched to it. It didn't occur to me until I finished this bag that we've got the top stitching. So once you've sewn the zip in place on both sides of the bag, so what I've done here is just grabbed some scraps of fabric and put another zipper tape on. So imagine this being your two rectangular pieces of fabric. You've got your zipper head in here. You're going to have the outer fabric and the lining behind one another. on each side, and you go along and top stitch right along there. We'll go and do that now, just so that you can say we've done it. Now for this particular bag, I don't want to be top stitching all the way from one end to the other. So we'll start sewing 1/2 inch from the end with a back stitch. And we'll go to the other end and we'll finish 1/2 inch from the other end. And we'll do the same on the other side. Grab your 2 outer pieces and we can bring those edges together. Line up your corners and pin or clip it across. And on the lining we'll do the same. We're going to line up the sides. And on the bottom we're going to leave an opening of about the width of my hand. So we'll sew down here, across here, along here, and along these 3 edges. And my seam allowance is about 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch. It really doesn't matter at this point as long as it's the same on all of your sides and when you do the box corners. So this is my lining. I'll end the work there, leave an opening. And then I'll just sew around all the other edges. Okay, we're nearly finished. So let's pinch out the corners on the bottom, on the lining. And rather than pressing my seams open, I like to have them in opposing directions. I'll have one side going to my right, the other to my left. They will lock in place nicely in the centre there. And on this side I'll do the same. So where this seam is now folded over to my right, I'm going to continue it along here. And when I pinch that out, this will go to my right and the one closest to me will go to my left. So these are both ready to be stitched straight across with the same seam allowance. This is the outer fabric. And I'll do the same at this end as far as the seams are concerned. So both ends are ready to be done. And then we've got the top section where the zipper tape is. So we want to bring this corner out and line that up in line with the centre of our zipper tape. And I'm just going to pop a clip in on the side here as well. I'll flip that around and I'll do the same with the lining. So I'll spread that out, open up this box corner here and line that up so it's nice and even, or fairly even at the top. And then this diagonal and this diagonal, I'll clip those edges together and I'll do the same on this side. And then we'll sew with that seam allowance straight across here. So you'll be sewing through the lining, the zipper tape and the fleecy and the outer fabric all in one go. And then we'll go to the other end and do the same. Spread apart the fleecy or the outer fabric. Once you've got that nice and straight, clip it, just to hold it in place. Turn it around and repeat for the lining. And then secure those layers together. So we can go back to the machine, we can sew across there and here and here. So that's all the bottom corners done. Now I can move that out of the way, bring all of these layers together. If you feel it's too thick, you might want to hand crank this. On the outside of the triangles you'll be fine, it's just over the top of the zipper tape. It may get a little bit bulky for some. So I'll go slowly across the centre, but I will go over it again. And repeat for the other side. So move the lining out of the way. So we've got the centre of the bag done now, and we've got the lining over here and the outer fabric. Let's fold this out of the way, and that will expose the lining. So we can bring the lining and the outer fabric together. And we're just going to stitch across the centre part to secure the two layers together. So we've got the top section of the bag sandwiched in the middle there. We can spin this around. So this is the bottom of our bag, the top of our bag, the two pieces stitched together with the zip, and this is the lining. So keep the lining there, fold this one over just so that it's out of the way, and bring this one over and just position it straight over the top. So that last step we did at the machine just now, that was to secure the bottom edges of the corners of the bag so that when you're putting things in and out, you're not having the lining wanting to come out as well. We forgot to leave the zip open. I do this every time, don't I? Way back when we cut the zipper ends off, we should have opened up the zipper tape. Luckily, I did leave a small opening at one end, so I can open that all the way. And I can turn the bag the right way out. So we've got a nice box corner at the top there. That means we didn't have to worry about putting zipper tabs in. And we can poke our corners out at the bottom as well. But before we do that, let's just turn the whole bag inside out. And we can fold the edges of the lining over. Press that along the opening. You can either whip stitch this by hand or just go and do a narrow top stitch from here to here. And that's all I'll go and do now. I'll do that and I'll be right back. Now this is when I've realised that I completely forgot to do the top stitching on this bag. So I finished up the inside, that's closed up, and the top stitching hasn't been done. I can actually leave this as it is. It doesn't look too bad, but I don't actually like things that haven't been top stitched. So I will go and sew a row of top stitching along both of those edges there. But otherwise this is finished. So it's a nice little feature having just a diagonal strip in a contrast fabric going down the other side, and the same along here. And I didn't intentionally try to line these seams up. I actually wanted this to be completely random, but for some reason this is lined up. I guess because I've cut my rectangles out together. So that's just another little take on a little rectangular pouch. The box corner at the bottom is just slightly larger than that at the top. and that was really just so that I could get the zip installed without the fuss of having to put any zipper tabs on. So for the past couple of weeks, I haven't been very productive at all. I've had lots of medical appointments and then a really bad cold for the past 10 days or so. This is the first day I've had that I've really been motivated to get some work done. And in my mind, I wanted to churn out 4 videos today so I have some content to put up over the next week or so when I've got other appointments. And I probably should wait until my mind is completely clear before I can tackle these tasks. But anyway, we got there in the end. So I've made a couple of mistakes. That's fine. I have brain fog quite a lot recently, so I know I shouldn't do this to myself. But anyway, you guys will be able to follow along. The instructions are simple. Where I've forgotten to leave the zipper open or even to do the top stitching, you'll have had notifications during the video for those. But it's turned out pretty good. I don't like the idea of wasting the fabric, but I really did just want to make a simple pouch today and yeah, just have something a little bit different. I love the bright colours in it too. I'll take this to the shop. I'll probably sell it for, once I've ironed it, for about $15 or $20. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.